Grog.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Cider Shed podcast. I'm Matthew Weir, and unfortunately I didn't hit record slightly earlier because Keri was just describing what her bosom is doing right now.
Well, you said, are you a good distance from your mic? And I said, well, my bosom is resting on the table. So that's an indication of how far from the mic I am. If you know me, you know how far that is, I suppose. Straight away, we're in with the tits, aren't we?
Yes, the microphone is in Hove, Keri is in Brighton.
Correct.
It's a bit of a festival weekend in the Cider Shed in that I am off to the Festival of São João here tonight in Porto, and Keri is off to a day festival tomorrow, which is, Keri?
It's called Colours, and it's at the Delaware Pavilion in Bexhill-on-Sea, and it's an outdoor one right on the beach. And all the artists are women, bands, singers, what have you. And it's one particular person that I wanted to see, and I'm going to see them on my own on a little train journey, and I'm going to just mooch about solo and love it.
Okay, cool. I'm going downtown to watch a lot of fireworks, dance in the street, and hit people on the head with a plastic hammer.
What about the festival?
That is the festival, pretty much. It's just massive street parties. So in and around the centre of Porto, you find these little communities where people still live in a city. It hasn't been completely gentrified. So you can go just from neighbourhood to neighbourhood, just these street parties with all these bars and food things set up.
Why do Portuguese people have a festival devoted to Timmy Mallet?
It's a very good question. I'll do lots of investigation into that and get back to you, Keri.
Great, thank you. And we're doing a speedy-ish one, aren't we? Because we've got stuff to do.
Yeah, that's why I was saying all of that, wasn't it? Yeah, because I'm going out and won't be home till about 5 or 6 in the morning, and Keri's not available tomorrow, so I will. And I haven't got to the supermarket to get festival supplies yet, so we're going to get through this, and then God knows what the edit's going to be like, the state I'll be in tomorrow, but we'll give it a go. All right, Keri, let's have a little break, and then we'll come back and do them archers.
Smashing.
I mean, the burning question here, Keri, is how much longer can Peter hold out before he comes back to the podcast from his sabbatical? Because it seems to drive him slightly nuts, doesn't it? And he comes into the Cider Shed WhatsApp group. I'm doing my best to design an AI version of Peter. Like I have, it's only in its early stages, but just so people know, this is how Peter feels about the Archers this evening.
He nearly drove into a tree to stop the agony of Helen egging Lee. What a P.S. I'm not from Swindon. I'm not Swindon. I'm not from Swindon.
Okay, look, I mean, it's a prototype. I didn't tell it to say.
Swindon.
Yeah, I didn't tell it to say that. It's becoming self-aware. It's like Terminator.
Yeah, so Peter's turned into a Latvian female. Or something.
Touch of the what's her names? Who was the
the surrogate.
Lexi.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? Yeah, because Peter, this week and last week, just at the point we're about to hit record, he pops up, doesn't he, going, bloody hell, this week's Archers is doing my head in and tells us why. So he's supposed to have these Friday evenings away from the Archers with his family, and he can't stop getting in touch.
If only there was somewhere he could go to air his grievances.
Yeah.
As with the airing of grievances, let's start with Harrison, God's cop. Your thoughts on Harrison's wanting to leave the force, the dangerous front line of Ambridge policing, as Ben put it.
That's really taking it out of him, isn't it? He's been policing for 15 years, since he was 23. So that is quite a long time, isn't it? I can understand why you might be suddenly thinking about changing. But on Fallon's birthday, he sort of rocked up from his night shift as a little surprise with some lay-by flowers. And I don't think that's ever a good idea.
Isn't the statistic that everyone that buys lay-by flowers or petrol station flowers is coming back from an affair?
Is it?
70% of people that buy flowers in petrol stations or lay-bys have been at it somewhere else.
Okay. Maybe he's having to leave the police force then, because he's been tampering at the station with a fellow colleague or something. So he was on nights, wasn't he? And Fallon was not best pleased with him yawning while she was talking about the cake that Emma had made. And then sort of went, anyway, I'm off now to see Ben and Bess. And she wasn't best pleased because she said, you've only just got here. Like, yeah, but I promised him and I keep saying no. Left. So she was fuming, wasn't she? Which came out later. And she wasn't really listening to him talk about his desires to get in touch with nature, do something a bit more meaningful, not deal with police work.
I like that bit where he said, what's that yellow thing called? And Ben was like, the sun, Harrison.
He was like, no, I know what a buttercup is. We don't know anything about what you do know and what you don't know, Harrison. It's all guesswork.
He's worried that things are passing him by, doesn't he? It was like, drug cartels, modern slavery units.
Any type of crime at all.
It's totally eating him up inside that he can't spill the beans about Rob, isn't it? So what he's compensating for that by basically having a handover meeting with anyone that he meets about everything that's gone on in the station in the last 48 hours. Because he said a couple of weeks ago to someone, possibly even Ben, that it's not fair to put it all on Fallon so he doesn't really say anything to her when he gets home. And then suddenly we hear the complete opposite of that when he comes through the door.
Yes, and offloads about the mental health woman who there weren't any ambulances for hours, and the state of her flat was really disturbing, and she wasn't capable of independent living and so on. I mean, it must be rough, mustn't it, dealing with that sort of thing day in, day out for 15 years.
It didn't stop him having designs similar to Fallon, because Fallon said she still waits for Emily Eveses to give her the call and she should be playing on the pyramid stage at Glastonbury. But Harrison himself, he broke into a bit of J-Lo. Did you hear?
Oh, God, no.
He said, all the people from the block having a pop. Yeah.
Well, maybe they can leave Ambridge together and they'll be appearing at Glastonbury next year. If Freddie's DJing's anything to go by, these two will be headlining Glastonbury next year, won't they?
DJ Freddie in the house, y'all.
The whole Freddie thing, he's gone off to Ibiza and John is going in tow. I mean, that's a shame because I'm going to miss Johnny.
Yeah. When did we last hear from him?
That's probably about 2.5 years ago.
84 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, John is he's going to be the one that's going to freak everyone out when they drop some wobbly eggs. They'll be like, Freddie, your mate, he never says anything.
So yeah, that's what he's like all the time. Yes, Harrison. Then she really softened, didn't she? And said, I'll support you. I know you hate your job. And then he went, I don't hate it. I don't hate my job. Make your bloody mind up. And they were all lovey-dovey. They had a washing up fight, didn't they? Because they're a team. He wanted to grab the tea towel. All very heavy-handed script writing, that was. But something's trouble at Mill, isn't it, really?
I think we've got a crossover coming where Harrison ends up... Fallon goes to open her her patty bar, whatever that is. And Harrison ends up as some kind of Death in Paradise style copper. I mean, he'd probably yield excellent results there, wouldn't he, in that kind of environment? Because from what I've seen of Death in Paradise, the criminals are so bloody daft.
I've never seen it.
It's almost impossible not to catch them. Have you not seen Death in Paradise? I'm having this weird feeling that you've defended it.
Oh, God, no. I haven't seen that. I love detective stuff, though, so I'm surprised I haven't seen that. And unless it's so shit, I wouldn't bother.
Are you up with Black Mirror?
I'm not yet. No, people at work were discussing it. And one of the guys at work was saying a particular episode, he didn't go into it because I haven't watched it, has really haunted him since.
Loch Henry episode 2, absolutely stunning.
Oh, okay. I will watch them. Yes, her fantasy life came out of nowhere, didn't it? All of a sudden she's gonna... I know it was a fantasy, but that wasn't what I was expecting her to say. Is it you?
No. Do you think that's them heading off into the sunset? Because Linda gave that whole... Oh, it's bloody awkward, isn't it? Hearing Linda talk about Robert kind of gets you in the feels, doesn't it? When she said there was less and less of him, I was like, oh, God.
Oh, no.
But their escape was to come to Ambridge. So if living in Ambridge to Fallon isn't perfect for her, then maybe the logical step is something like they go over to the Caribbean or something like that. I don't know. I felt like this was the beginning of them getting written out. I mean, who's going to solve all the crime? Who's going to settle all the hedge disputes?
Nobody. The same as always. I don't think they're going to leave. I think it quite rightly, you know, couples have friction, don't they? And it was that, and it shows that Harrison. There's a bit more to Harrison than meets the eye. She's gonna support whatever he wishes to do. I think he may well leave his job, but it's giving her the heebie-jeebies because of her precarious business, which can go to shit, can't it? Like when COVID happened. How are they going to pay for the inflatable flamingos?
Gin and tonic cupcake kits, and God, that's hard to say. Yeah, there is some suggestion online that Harrison might be the next vicar, thereby blocking Shula's return, which I'm all for, to be honest.
Can you imagine his sermons? You know, where he doesn't actually know anything, doesn't understand anything.
And so Jesus said,
I think it was Jesus. It looked a bit like Jesus. We had a lineup, and they all had long hair, so I couldn't really tell them apart. Like
Pontius Pilate looked down at him and said, "Look, lads, this is a civil matter. Let it go."
Yeah, a bit worried about them early in the week, less worried about them at the end of the week. I think they'll be okay.
Another couple who are experiencing friction, Tom and Lee.
They are, aren't they? Lee's been moping about the place, snapping at Tom about he's been put on restricted duties where he can't have face-to-faces with people. He's got to do, was it online consultations or remote or something?
I thought restricted duties was what Helen had him on in the bedroom.
Oh, she is hideous. We'll get to her later.
Well, I thought maybe in terms of the karate lessons, everyone's allowed to punch him in the knackers, but he's not allowed to retaliate.
Sykesy's missing him, though.
I had no idea that Lee and Sykesy were having an affair.
He prefers the touch of not Harrison. Harrison's not involved, is he?
Well, I mean, he is looking for a career change. The strong arm of the law and all that.
He prefers the touch of Lee because this other person, the other physio, has got cold hands, which made me immediately think Lee's hands are really warm and sweaty.
I'm imagining coming in with like Kenny Everett style hands now. Yeah. All right, come on, Sykesy, let's go.
But what was that weird bit where Lee, having snapped at Tom and had a bit of an argy-bargy, kind of understandably because he's messed up his career, although Lee has got a mind of his own, you would hope. When he sort of went, he phoned Ben, didn't he? Just after Helen woke him up and forced him to make dinner from his nap. He said to Ben, make sure Sykesy does do his exercises.
Yeah, and P.S. tell him I love him.
I didn't. Why did he do that? What was the point of that? Because surely Ben probably says that sort of thing to Sykesy, doesn't he? Oh, come on, Sykesy, you old twat.
I think it's to show that he really misses his job, and it's eating him up inside, that he's missing going into the laurels and fondling old farm workers.
Now, whereas Ben probably has everyone in the care home's mobile phone numbers, and because he takes them all home with him, it sounds like Lee does not have Sykesy's mobile because he could have just rung him, couldn't he? And said, do your exercises.
Do you think Sykesy has a mobile?
Oh, that's true. Do old people? I've got a mobile, so maybe he has. But it was horrible hearing his name. I sort of thought, I'd forgotten about him, and I quite liked that I had forgotten about him, and now they're mentioning him. He didn't appear, so that was good.
I get a feeling he is a vehicle for other things, like he will be back at some point. Tom getting all the right treatment from Lee, I felt. There was just that bit where Tom was like, look, maybe I could speak to Rob and explain that it was my idea to go down there and kick the shit out of him and intimidate him. And Lee just kind of looked back at him and said, I was so stupid for listening to you, you twat. Or something like that.
Said, yeah. And he also said, I'll speak to your management at work. Can you imagine that happening? He did step into, when Linda was trying to badger Lee into getting on the Fete committee, Tom sort of stepped in, didn't he, and warded her away.
Lee doesn't seem to be able to handle any questions about anything right now, because Linda said, like, how are things at your job or something? He went, my job? As if like he was about to go, my job that I'm restricted from because
how
of
do
this.
You think they are?
Yeah.
I think I do feel for Lee. Were we talking about Tom or Lee or both? Does it matter?
We're talking about both.
Yeah, I feel for Lee Helen is just nagging, isn't she? I know he messed up, but she nagged him before he messed up, and she's nagging him now. I don't know how he has the patience. Well, he doesn't have any patience at the moment.
This is how he doesn't have the patience, because he doesn't have any.
But do you know what I mean? I think how she speaks to him around the house. Okay, yes, come on. You said you were cooking dinner. Wake up. And then Jack is complaining that he's hungry. I was like, this sounds like an awful household. And then Pat showed up.
Pat chat. It's just an extension of Bridge Farm, isn't it? In its misery, dysfunction, I think.
Yes.
There was that bit where Helen earlier in the week said, I am a 44-year-old woman with 2 children. Actually, scrub that, 3 children.
Yeah. Yes. Who I need to protect and nag at constantly.
We got away from it a bit with some cheese tasting, though, thankfully.
Oh, God, that was a bit weird as well, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
sort of, the texture's good. It's really creamy.
I thought when Linda said to Lee, like, I know you have a full plate, I was imagining Lee was walking back with one of those, if you can eat this breakfast, you don't pay kind of things from the counter.
Yeah, the cheese thing, it was just, that was a means of Pat tiptoeing around and seeing who she'd been speaking to about what. And then in the end, Helen did say, I am not going to contact Rob. I'm not going to see him. I've decided. Do you feel relieved about that? And Pat was like, we do support you in everything, even no matter how uncomfortable it makes us feel. We're always here for you. Oh, that was another thing about when Pat and Tony realised, I think this was on Sunday, really early on, after their heads had exploded and they were shouting at Helen and making brain soup with their exploding heads. Tony said, we have to find a way to communicate our concerns without making things worse. No shit. He said that as if he'd had a religious moment and it all had become clear. I mean, thank God it has come to this point, because I just hope they stop shouting at her.
Yeah, because we had that juxtaposition of them after Helen walked off. They said, like, it was something along those lines, wasn't it? We need to do everything we can to protect her or show her that we want the best for her. And then it just cut to Helen walking into Lee and Kirsty and going, oh, Jesus, what a pair of they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Kirsty, she stepped in, didn't she, saying, we all love you, Helen, but that doesn't mean we have to like what you're doing. And all of Twitter were going, no, we don't. Don't count us in with that we all love you thing.
I had no idea Helen had discovered Twitter and the podcast, because she said, those voices inside telling me I'm worthless.
Inside my telephone. And Henry spoke this week.
Yeah, Henry on mic.
Don't say Henry on mic. That's not nice image.
Poor old Mike Tucker. He couldn't do it anyway with his diabetes.
Good.
There was that very clumsy story about Helen got stuck in the mud and Tom got a wooden plank and went to help her. What was it Henry said? I mean, he said the 4 words that you can best use to describe Tom. He said, epic fail, Uncle Tom. Henry never needs to speak again.
He just needs to sort of rotate permanently, going epic fail, epic fail, epic fail at everyone who's around him, and it'll tie in nicely.
Harrison did say obs this week.
He did, yeah. That whoa, it makes you just go like that, doesn't it? Whoa.
Yeah. Do you shimmy when you do that?
I do. I am shimmying. Oh, the shoulders are going. And also they had a beetroot picking competition. Everything has to be a sodding competition, doesn't it? There's barely an episode goes by without someone competing for something. It's like if they're at the till, it's like, how quickly can you get your card reader out? Will it be before I get my phone out?
If Rishi Sunak is in that race, you're bound to win.
It's very strange indeed, all this competitiveness, isn't it? When did you last have to compete with somebody?
Well, I had a bet with a student on Wednesday, because much like you, Keri, they are obsessed with the TV series The Tudors.
Are they?
Yeah, they've watched the series 5 times, apparently.
Amazing. Good.
And I gave them it was a past simple exercise. So it was the history of Henry VIII. So there was a gap in each various points in the text where they had to write the past simple form of the verb, obviously, because Henry VIII existed in the past. Yeah. And there was a bit in there about... I worked
that out. I know he's on my television, but I can tell. Something about him.
Yeah.
Not modern.
Isn't it Jonathan Rhys-Meyers plays Henry VIII in that?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, because that was on TV around 2007 when I was living in Ireland, and obviously he's big in Ireland, so that kind of boosted it. Otherwise, they might not be so fanatical about watching someone who formed the Church of England.
Yes.
She felt convinced that Edward Tudor had died at about the age of 8. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure he was a teenager. He wasn't far off getting to the throne. She said, no, in the series, he's very young. And then I bet we had a little competition about it. And then it turned out he died when he was 15.
He did indeed. Yeah, we're forever scrolling on Google to find out, to fact check bits and pieces. We're loving it. We're enjoying it. It's a right old romp. Henry VIII is horrific. I don't know. He must have had some redeeming qualities. He's a bit like Adam. He's not like Adam. Yeah. Anyway, I'm loving that. So you did have a bet and you won the bet.
Yes. There was a bit at the end, but they listed all of his wives in the relationship. Who was the last wife? Catherine.
Tate.
No, the one who outlived him.
Well, it's either Parr or Howard. We haven't got there yet. They're the two at the end.
Just one of my students did very good informal English. His last wife was blah, 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 who survived. He died, and one of the students just went, good one, Catherine.
That sounds like she's still alive now.
If Henry VIII hadn't existed, or if he had existed but not been so desperate to remarry, how much different do you think Ambridge would be as a community? Because obviously you wouldn't have a C of E.
Yeah, but he flip-flopped all over the place in terms of that as well.
Much like Adam.
Yeah, along the way. Well, the whole country would be very different. He's got a lot to answer for, this Henry VIII character.
Yeah, I mean, the more I read about him, the less I like him, to be honest. Helen? Yeah. Keri?
Jesus!
No, it's Matthew. Hello, this is the Cider Shed pod with Jesus and Helen. So,
yes, back to the village.
We're enjoying Lee being shitty to Tom, at least I am.
Yes.
Henry's on mic. We never really need to hear from him again. He said the only 4 words that need saying.
Oh, one thing about him, though, he's fast at running. I was thinking, how significant is that going to be? Because he was picked for the 100 metres.
That's going to be like The Shining. He can outrun Rob.
Exactly. My thoughts immediately leapt to him running away, having shot him in the head.
2 other people that are having a slightly different relationship to the one they had until recently, Stella and Adam.
Stella is taking no shit. She's taking no prisoners. It's great hearing her deal with Adam in this way. He's properly in his place. She's marching about, telling people not to have fires when they've had fires for years in that place.
Her dog's wanting to savage the entire Aldridge family.
Yeah. The bit where Adam said to her, I don't want you to think that I didn't stand up for you. It's like, she was there. She was there. And you did. And then he tried to say, my head was in a bad place. I was really struggling. It's like, you weren't at the time that she was fired and you were standing there doing nothing.
She saw parallels between the way he passed the buck on to Kate about the fire.
Yes.
And he said, she said you blamed Kate. Funny that.
I love this.
Yeah, I am too. There was that bit where he said, I could stick around and have that cozy job of sitting up in the combine harvester. And she went, no, I'm sure Bridge Farm needs you to get down in the dirt and pull weeds out with your hands, you double-crossing shit.
Yeah. She's great, isn't she? A top character, Stella. And she went up Lakey Hill with Ruth, which always infers a romantic liaison. It doesn't matter who it is who goes up there.
We got to hear about something else, though, didn't we?
The woman at the wedding that she's been messaging, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. She's been frantically messaging because she's super keen, isn't she?
Yeah, there was that bit where, wanting to know more, Ruth said, come on, Stella, flick the beans.
She did not, you naughty boy.
What was it? Spill.
All right. Yes. Is this the first time we have had confirmation of Stella being attracted to women?
Yes. I mean, other than the fact that you said on the podcast about a month ago, I reckon she wears trousers.
And has possibly short hair, yeah.
Yeah.
All the signs in this modern world.
Keri. Why are we getting fun Adam? It's just Adam, but he's laughing where he wouldn't have normally done it. Because on Wednesday, it was the clean-up operation in the kitchen, wasn't it?
In the pizza van.
Yeah, pizza van, sorry. And
Yeah.
Kate was trying to drag him into the Wicker Man solstice thing that she was having. And he said, but he said it with laughter, but I haven't finished disinfecting the surfaces.
This boils down to the fact that he can't act.
Well, and somebody has said to him, lighten it up a bit.
Yeah, and his way of lightening up is doing that. There was the smudging stick, wasn't there, that Kate had? She was lighting her smudging stick, which she was selling for $4.99 a stick or 4 for 20 quid. I love how she completely commercialises all this spiritualism. It's hilarious. And the smoke from the sage wards off negative energy. So I was thinking, why is Adam still standing there?
Well, that was a little bit of a precursor to Stella barging in, wasn't she? She was the negative energy. So obviously not enough sage in your smudging stick. Okay, you need to get a bit more.
How about Adam? He wrote a note and lit it, didn't he, and threw it to the fire or something like that. And about something from your past that you'd like to get rid of.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel sad anymore when I think about my mum. I'd like to smile. Will that do? He said at the end.
Do you think that's just him saying that to the director and they accidentally left that bit in? Yes. I thought when she said, what would you like to let go of? He was like, this IOU for 5,000 for rewiring the cottage.
Oh, yeah, set that on fire.
So there is tension building.
Kate was rude to Stella as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, didn't she say something along the lines, he's already fired you once?
Yeah, and you're an employee.
Yeah, trouble is coming there, isn't there? There's going to be some issues. If only Jenny were here to sort them all out with a cake.
It was weird, like Adam sort of violently threw water on the fire in the middle of this 40 people, most of whom, it was all vegan, wasn't it? And various diets were mentioned. There were 3 on raw food diets, 2 paleo, 7 gluten-free, a FODMAP, which is to do with IBS, a nut allergy.
Well, if nut allergy, get out of Ambridge. That person's body just ballooned the moment they entered the county.
They'd paid money to be there for this spiritual experience, and the next thing, Adam's throwing water on the fire pit and Stella's shouting at Kate. It's not very calming, really, is it?
No, it's an Aldrich family solstice.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to me that the people in the background had even noticed what was happening. You could just hear them like mingling and chatting and having fun. And at the same time, there's just this massive argument kicking off. Ruth was good as the voice of reason, wasn't she? She was like, no, look, it hasn't ruined your freaky festival. Everything's going to be fine. Everyone's so high. I mean, they're all eating this LSD, chocolate laced with LSD, isn't it?
Yeah, Stella had a good line, didn't she? What did she say? I'm partial to a twirl.
Yes.
Which was I liked that because it obviously just cut through the bullshit, didn't it? Yeah. She's not part of any of that scene at all. She's about dealing with facts and logical things, and that's all nonsense. And if embers are going to risk setting fire to everything that I'm working for, I'm off for a twirl. Yeah. And with it being the solstice, I did have this vision of the drill that's cost like, what is it, £250,000, like turning up next week and it being a scale model somehow, like a really sort of small one, like the Spinal Tap.
Stonehenge. Forget this. Fuck the napkin. Yeah.
I really hope when it turns up, it's actually nothing like what they've paid for. That wouldn't bode well for Stella, though. So I shouldn't wish that, really.
But she still makes Adam try to get inside and work it, even though it's very tiny.
Yes. Oh, speaking of things that should be big and are small, or you think they're small and they're big, I met Doctor Who the other day.
Oh yeah,
on the train.
Sylvester McCoy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that was weird, sitting on my little train going home.
Did you thank him to his services for crisps?
Haha, I didn't. It was a very brief encounter, me and Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. I sort of went, oh, you're Sylvester McCoy, aren't you? And he went, yes.
What was the name of his sidekick that I fancied in Doctor Who?
Ace or something. Because someone said, If only you'd met Ace, they put on Twitter, which I had to Google because I didn't know what they were talking about.
She was the one that used to say "wicked." Instead, like they threw her in as a kind of a late 80s B-girl kind of character,
did
didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. And someone else on Twitter said, "Oh, well done for meeting the second worst Doctor Who." Oh, thanks.
Who's the first?
I don't know. I daren't ask him.
Well, for Doctor
will it
Who
be?
fans, they all think that Paul McGann was the worst one.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, that'll be it then. No, he was lovely. It was so nice to see him. He got right sort of, I'm quite good with recognising faces. Suddenly he was there. I was like, oh, I had to ask him if he was who I thought he was.
Andy went to an absolutely terrible Doctor Who museum, which has really bad waxworks somewhere
This sounds good.
Yeah, Tom Baker, kind of, as I recall, he looked demonic, as I recall. I'll have to see if I can find the video that he sent me, because I then sent it to a friend of mine whose son is a big Doctor Who fan. She wrote back and said, Zach hasn't stopped laughing for 10 minutes. So.
I love those bad waxworks places. They're so good, aren't they? Usually it's like Cliff Richard and the Royal Family and stuff like that, isn't it?
Well, there's some where you literally just have to try and guess who it is.
Yeah, that's so much better than actual realistic ones, isn't it?
Yeah, could be Ian Botham, could be Freddie Mercury. Not sure. Let's have a little break and then we'll come back. And is there anything left?
No.
Ferrety fun. There you go. You look silly now.
I do look silly, don't I? Yeah, Eddie and his ferrety fun. He wants to race ferrets with humans. Is that right? Or did he want to cross ferrets with humans and create a new race who will then take over Ambridge? Some will have the heads of ferrets and the lowers of humans, and others will have the heads of humans and the undercarriage and legs of ferrets.
I think Barry, whatever his name's, already working on that, isn't he? It's got some lab going. Linda wasn't up for it at all until Eddie said, "We've heard about Darrington and their Polecat Fest, haven't you?"
Did he? I haven't. I missed that. That's another line. Have you just made that up? I don't know.
Yeah, I just made it up.
Oh, it could have fucking happened though, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh dear, oh dear. Yes, bless Joy. She was the only person who volunteered proactively for the Village Fete committee. Fallon was sitting there having been wrangled into it by Linda having a nice chat with her and then going, "So you will sign up for the Fete committee after all, won't you, Fallon?"
Your Linda impression just gets me. Sorry for everyone who had headphones on at that moment.
And then Eddie, for some reason, desperately wants to bring his ferret creatures on board. What's he wanting out of this? Is he going to? Oh, he's going to bet, isn't he? He's going to run a book.
Yeah,
that's
for
the
sure.
thing. When is the fete? Is it a summer fete? Yeah, we're in summer, aren't we? Oh, God, does that mean it's soon?
A celebrity always shows up.
Yeah, who could it be? Sylvester McCoy, maybe.
Yeah, or Sylvester Stallone.
Equally as likely. Yes.
and as believable as all of this stuff as well. I mean, you keep asking who this new character they're talking about with the double-barreled name, Evie Charging Station.
Yeah, when's she going to appear then?
Oh, I assume she's just best mates with Verity Fun.
Yes. It was a very lame joke, that EV charging station, but it went down a storm on Twitter. I'm sure. I thought, I'm not going to be the first person who's said this. And I sort of went, oh, does she live beyond the bypass? Which is another repeated trope on Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah.
EV charging station was mentioned, wasn't she? Because Susan is going on about it and there's going to be a delayed meeting. Is it next week about the whole thing?
Mm-hmm. And Jim's going to pack it all out.
Boring. Not interested.
Yeah, it's never going to happen, is it? That's my feeling on it.
Do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. Keri, if people do want to know about EV Charging Station and Verity Fun, how would they get in touch on Twitter?
On Twitter, we are at the Cider Shed Pod. We are busy during the tweet-alongs, except I wasn't this week so much because I was watching The Ashes. Sorry about that. That was great. That's where to find us there. #TheArchers. Come and join in. We haven't had any new reviews this week, so anyone who hasn't yet written a 5-star review, get amongst it and look at the instructions how to do so on our pod description.
You can follow us on Instagram, same handle as Twitter, at the Cider Shed Pod, and we have a Facebook group called the Cider Shed Podcast, where people have been making their feelings known, particularly about Rob's return. We actually do have an email as well, which is hello@thecidershed.com. If you want to get in touch and you don't use any of those other means of social media, that's how you can do it. Quick shout out to our Patreons. Thanks as always for supporting the podcast. We really, really appreciate it, as it's just me, Jesus, and her, Helen, now producing the podcast at the moment. So yeah, and it all helps. Shout out to Helen, who became a new patron this week. Yeah, Helen got in touch as well to say she's been listening since the beginning and she followed you from the other podcast and shut the door behind me.
Yes. Best decision of your life, Helen.
Well, yeah, and breathe, Helen. But love you all so much, and I decided it was time to join Patreon finally. She's asked a question there that somebody else did ask. I think it might have been Richard or Dan, about whether we can create an RSS feed on Saturday so they can listen to the pod so without going through the Patreon app. I'm going to look into that and making that available. So just leave that with me, and I will. I'll try and have a look at that at the beginning of next week.
Well, thank you, Helen, for following us to here. Much appreciated.
Did you watch Question Time last night from Clacton-on-Sea, Keri?
I didn't. Is it worth a watch?
Well, I've only seen the highlights on Twitter. There was a woman who said that the reason she voted leave was because of safety regulations for people who go up on roofs. And I have to give a massive shout out to Sheil at Verbling on Twitter, who just quote tweeted it with, "Nigel fell off his roof when we were in the EU, though."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did someone really say that on the
They did.
question
I'm
time?
going to share a link to it. Yeah, she was. It was just one of those moments where you're looking there and thinking, and it's either she's desperately trying to remember some story that she read in the Mail 7 years ago, or she's been on holiday with a very hateful person who's pointed out some roofers in France and just said, "Hey, look at that. Look what they're doing." And she's like, "Right, that's why I'm leaving the EU."
I am astounded sometimes by people. What a moron. And great tweet.
Yeah, I did create a work this morning, which is European roof with moon. And it was basically a photo of a roof I took opposite my house. And then I just put her face as the moon in the sky.
Oh, did you?
Next to it.
I'll have a look at that. Yeah, you're at Mr. Weir on Twitter, aren't you? And I'm at Keri Warbis.
We never give our actual Twitter accounts, do we? So yeah, I'll send it to you now, Keri. You can have a look.
And it's Keri Warbis.
All right, Keri, we're off to festivals.
Yeah, we are. Cannot wait.
I will
have a brilliant weekend.
Yeah, I'll endeavour to get this. What?
That picture. Oh, it's so good. European roof and morning moon, oil on canvas. 1902.
Yeah. I mean, she became a little bit of a star on Twitter last night. I'm going to send you the clip itself now.
Oh, thank you.
I don't mind live reacting to you watching it, Keri. Let's do that. That's going to make for good podding.
Left.
Got the volume up?
I'm just doing that. Let's see.
I have to say is the reason that I wanted to come out of Brexit was because we seemed to keep to all of the rules, and many foreign countries didn't. I'm just talking about people that go up on roofs, for one thing. We kept, when they brought the rules in about the safety guards, we
the safety guards.
But when you went to France or Germany or something, they were all up on their roofs with nothing, and we were paying the cost of
Is she a roofer?
Having to do it the right way, and they weren't. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I voted.
That man next to her is trying not to laugh.
I know. Both people either side of them.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a lot of things that aren't right. So, but,
Your head.
You're one of them.
was because we seem to keep.
Oh, she started again. Fucking hellfire.
Yeah. I know.
How did she dress herself and that sort of thing? Do you know what I mean? It's incredible. Anyway, on that note.
Yeah. Stay off the roof, everyone.
See you next week, everybody. Mwah.
Bye.
Other people from the block having a pop.